everyone to the annual conference of the Fight Food Waste CRC, the first with our partners of our new division, Stop Food Waste Australia, and unfortunately the second in a row where we'll not be together because of this damn pandemic. My name is Steve Lapidge and I'm the CEO of Fight Food Waste Limited, which incorporates both the Fight Food Waste Cooperative Research Centre and now Stop Food Waste Australia. Before I go any further, and in the spirit of reconciliation, Fight Food Waste Limited acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to the land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. Specifically, I would like to acknowledge the Kaurna lands from which I join you today, and I would welcome you to acknowledge the lands from which you join us in the chat box. In designing this year's virtual conference, we have tried to balance the need to update our partners and participants in all that has happened in the last year, with trying to present short, engaging sessions on a really professional platform. We do hope that we have got the balance right. Thanks to all the delivery team and board members that have been involved in the organisation of the conference, with a particular thanks to Ben Osborne and Carolyn Eggart here in the headquarters office. I do sincerely hope that next year we'll be back together in person. To make sure, pop November 24 and 25 in your calendar now, as we are hoping it will be third time lucky at KPMG in Sydney. Now, without further ado, I would like to hand over to our chair, John Webster, to provide the official welcome address. John, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the board, welcome to the Fight Food Waste Limited 2021 annual conference. We have what we hope you'll find to be a lively and interesting update on what's happened in the fight to reduce food waste over the preceding year. You'll hear from keynote speakers and expert panels. You'll hear from people from industry, from research and government, from domestic and overseas, and you'll even hear from across locked Australian state borders. And you'll have the opportunity to participate through Q&A. It's intended to be interactive, but it will not be quite as flexible as the face-to-face meetings, which, as Steve said, will hopefully occur this time next year. And once we've discussed the interesting topics, our 3 Fight Food Waste CRC programs and Stop Food Waste Australia, we will hold a more administrative session to close proceedings tomorrow. This final session is the Fight Food Waste CRC participants meeting in our AGM. Now, while everybody is very, very welcome to attend, I'd also ask that our CRC participants and nominees, CRC participant nominees in particular, please stay for this session. It starts at 1:30, it only goes for an hour, but it's important that you stay so we have a quorum for our AGM. And it's very, very likely that none of you has a reasonable excuse for needing to leave to catch a plane. Well, I said this was going to be lively and interesting, so I should hit my mute button and hand back over to Steve Lapidge to kick off that part of proceedings. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, John. So the next item on our agenda is really a year in review, what we've achieved in the last 12 months. Now, this is mainly based on the financial year, so July 2020 to June 2021, although I must admit I do creep into this year a bit just with some of the more recent activities that are of note. Now, first of all, I really want to thank all our sponsors, first of all from the CRC side of things, and also our key or principal supporter in the Australian Government Oz Industry Cooperative Research Centre program within the Department of Industry, Science, Energy and Resources. Right now we have 60 participants within the CRC and another 5 that aren't specifically members, but we work closely with, and that's been growing all the time, and that's great to see. It's been a tough year for many of our participants, and we really appreciate your ongoing support. I'd also like to welcome all our new partners from Stop Food Waste Australia. Now, as we'll touch on later, that was a bidding process we went through late last year with Stop Food Waste Australia commencing in January this year. And since then, we've also managed to attract a number of new partners to our partnership there. And Mark, as Chief Operating Officer of Stop Food Waste Australia, we'll go through all that that division has achieved since it commenced 10 months ago. Again, I would like to really acknowledge the Australian Government, the Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment, who was the principal sponsor of Stop Food Waste Australia. I'd also like to acknowledge our board, Fight Food Waste Limited board, who have continued to support me and the organisation in terms of our efforts over the last year and provide some real guidance given their strong industry background and knowledge. So let's start off this talk talking about the vision, mission and purpose. Our vision is an Australia without food waste. But in terms of our overall strategy, again, this has not changed. Normally by this stage in a CRC, 3.5-year mark, most CRCs almost rewrote their business case, changed a lot of their milestones and resubmitted and changed direction. We're not, we're sticking true to our original business case and our original cause, and that is to significantly reduce food waste in this country and increase industry profitability, along with those other impact targets you see there. In doing so, we are addressing quite a few of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And as many would be aware, the key one here is goal 12.3, to halve global food waste by 2030. So in terms of what's been achieved in the 2021 year, these are the headline numbers from our recent annual report. You can see here 37 active projects and 8 projects delivered so far, so a total portfolio of 45 projects. In the last year, we had 32 scientific publications. Now, a lot of them were the reports that have been published by each of the programs, and they'll be touched on more in greater detail by each of the program leaders when they present. Of course, we have a new division, Stop Food Waste Australia, which commenced in January this year, and we'll talk more about that later on. So far, in terms of our original business case, we've achieved 13 of our milestones, and that's about 23%. And there's a couple there that have been delayed by 6 to 12 months due to delays related to COVID, but none that have been changed so far, and all of them are expected to be delivered in due course. We now have 14 postgraduate students commence. Total target is 40 students graduated. And again, this is something that we are always on the lookout for great new students or future leaders that can commence and do their studies with the CRC. So I did put out a bit of a reminder a month or so ago about if you do have the need for a bright postgraduate student to work within your industry, within your organisation, please let us know, because we do have arrangements there that are very financially attractive, I think, for most businesses. In terms of the total R&D expenditure so far, we're at about 23 million and 25%. And again, this is an area that we want to ramp up in the coming years. And as you'll see at right here, we have now finished the first iteration of our impact model. And when that has been presented to the CRC Association and other CRCs, the comment was certainly that it was best in class. It's very rare for a CRC to really start modelling their impact right from day one. Most CRCs would wait to their final year, bring in a consultant, and then try and work out what their impact is, and we will be tracking that all the way through. If you want to see those models, then please look at our annual report around how these current estimates were calculated. And that right, you can see where we are on our impacts. For some people, that may be behind my or the speaker's view, so you might need to minimise that. But in terms of our current target, and this is based on the 45 projects that we've got underway or are finished, we expect to reach about 37% of the food waste target, about 50% of the industry profitability target, well exceed the food rescue target. In fact, that capacity is probably not even available within the food rescue system to deal with that much food. The one that we're probably light on is around circular economy jobs, and that is because there has been somewhat of a change in focus. When we created the CRC, we were really looking at all food waste types and all destinations, where with taking on Stop Food Waste Australia, we are more focused on only destinations that will count towards the halving food waste target, so high value destinations and edible food waste. And because of that, there's probably not the same amount of jobs in the circular economy, in composting industries and so on. And so that's why we will be looking to make sure we also honour our original commitments to our participants around some of those outputs. The fourth area there I've already mentioned, future leaders graduated. In terms of the industry people trained, 314, well, we're probably in excess of this now, and that's very much thanks to Australian Institute of Packaging and some recent numbers that they've been able to provide to us around the Safe Food Training course. And in terms of the greenhouse gas emission savings, we'll be about halfway there based on the current portfolio. But again, we need to double the size of the portfolio in the coming years to make sure we achieve that target. So hopefully that gives you a pretty clear idea around how we're tracking against our original intended impacts. Now I'll just go through some of the numbers. For anyone that doesn't know the acronym MDQ, that's our Management Data Questionnaire. It's the data that we supply to the CRC program each year about how we're tracking. As you can see here in the last year, formal publications, so this is only journal papers and chapters in books, is up from 1 to 7, and you'd expect that as the CRC goes on. End user publications, so a lot of those project reports and so on, has slightly increased, but is maintaining a high output. Students, as I mentioned before, we've gone from 8 to 14. End user training is very much ramping up, and thanks to Australian Institute of Packaging and Food South Australia for some recent efforts there. And the number of collaborators continues to grow. One figure that I'd just like to show you is our media profile. Now, for an organisation that is trying to change behaviour and bring everyone along with the journey around fighting food waste, it's really important that we're in the media, we've got a constant presence, and people are aware of what the organisation is trying to achieve. So in looking at, we use a provider called Meltwater around tracking our media output. And as you can see here, it's ramping up considerably as we go on in future years. And right now, we're only 4 months into the 2021 financial year. And hopefully, if we show that trend continues, we'll be at around 350 individual articles where the CRC has been discussed. So again, I think that's a great output for a relatively small organisation. In terms of corporate documents over the last year, hopefully people saw the announcement around the value proposition and the investment framework that was around February this year. And that really outlines the funding that we do have left to try and attract new projects and new participants to the CRC. And that takes into account all the leverage arrangements we have with existing participants. So nothing is taken away from existing participants. That said, we do need to ramp up our research efforts, and that is a strong focus in the coming years. And of course, all of this has been outlined in the recent annual report, which why it actually occurs in this financial year is reporting on the previous financial year. If anyone has not seen the annual report, we are getting some printed as well. Please let us know, and we're happy to send you a hard copy, or of course, it's available electronically on our website. Now, just to go through a couple of highlights from the previous year. I'd really like to mention the Fight Food Waste, It's Easy As campaign. The CRC received $100,000 in stimulus funding related to the COVID pandemic, and it wasn't something we could give back. And so we decided to use it for a public awareness campaign. And this is what we put together. I would like to thank Sachi and Sachi for their involvement in this, in doing a lot of the collateral, and Tanya Wilkins, who really led this program so well. In the 3 months that it ran, it reached nearly 5 million people through various social media channels and did get a lot of media coverage. So I think it just shows the power of what we can achieve and that there is a lot of interest in what we're doing. Also, I'd like to discuss Stop Food Waste Australia. We've mentioned before that it commenced in January this year, and really is a game changer, I think, within Australia. The CRC is particularly focused on industry focused science, and the Stop Food Waste Australia is there to support other industry participants that may not necessarily need the R&D in the same way, but certainly want to make a difference around food waste, and it's to support them in their journey and making sure they get acknowledged for what they're achieving in their own operations. So I would like to acknowledge the original signatories of Stop Food Waste Australia. You can see them there: Areco, Coles, Goodman Fielder, McCain's, Mars, Mondelez, Simplot and Woolworths. And you'll be hearing from a number of these original signatories over the course of today. I'd also like to touch on the sector action plans, of which when Stop Food Waste Australia was created, we took on 2 sector action plans, and that was the Food Rescue and Relief Sector Action Plan and the Cold Chain Sector Action Plan. They've now been relaunched and adopted by the respective partners and are well underway. And in the coming year, we're working on a number of new sector action plans, and they relate to the dairy industry, and that's sponsored by Sustainability Victoria, and we thank them for that. The bread and bakery sector action plan with New South Wales EPA. There will be a food rescue and a food service sector action plan, hopefully related to a CRC project that will be created in the coming year. A horticulture sector action plan and a seafood sector action plan. We are also interested in a red meat sector action plan, and we're doing some of the foundation work around that with meat and livestock at the moment. Another area that we've really focused on in the last year is around our values and behaviours. And we've got quite a new team, and many people would have seen the various staff announcements throughout the year. And with that, we want to make sure everyone is on the same page, is committed to the cause. And so we did a number of workshops around looking at our values and behaviours, and they have changed a little bit over the last year. So this is our values and behaviours statement and our poster that really defines what we want to achieve and how we want to achieve it, and how we want, most importantly, how we want to achieve it together, and the behaviours that we're looking for in all our team members, and more importantly, in anyone involved with the CRC. If anyone hasn't seen this poster, I'm happy to share it with our participants, and we'll put it on our website. As I mentioned, there has been a number of team member changes in the last year. Fortunately, most of us did get together for a retreat in April this year, which after near 18 months of not being able to get together was just a great couple of days. I think what we've really done is build the foundations for the future growth of the organisation. And I really thank all the team members for their efforts over the last year in what has been an ongoing difficult year with not being able to go out and see participants and travel in the same way that we normally could. I'd like to welcome our new students over the last year, or new future leaders: Lee, Hannah, Jack, Lynn, Michael and Shan, and they will all present tomorrow, and hopefully you'll join that session. It's really a bit of a matchmaking, speed dating arrangement for the session tomorrow with the students around what they're looking for out of the CRC, what their projects are hoping to achieve, and whether there's anyone in our participants that can really help them on their journey. So please join that session. I'd also like to acknowledge Erin McDonald, who is our first graduate. Erin came on to look at the Too Good to Throw foodie bag and did an amazing job around designing a new product and an app to go with that. And she enjoyed the experience so much, she's now back doing a master's with us. And hopefully this will be a great little commercial success out of the CRC following Erin's master's. So in terms of our report card for the last year, this is the list of activities that I put up at last year's annual conference and was also in our annual report, and we'll just work through them. In terms of the contracting 5 remaining projects to make sure everyone is involved in a CRC project, we're not quite there. There's still 2 participants that are yet to have projects commence, but I'm concerned that that will occur in the next financial year. We did deliver the investment framework, as I mentioned before, but we haven't been able to achieve the industry cash contributions to take them back to that of the original grant agreement. And that's something that we'll continue to work on. It has been a tough time in terms of new business development in these uncertain economic times, and we're hoping that post-pandemic, it will give us a chance to try and catch that up. The next one is also related to that point. We did achieve about 900,000 in new industry funding over the last year, but that was offset by some declines from one participant withdrawing. We did commit to transforming the Transform program, and as you'll see today, it's a whole new team for the Transform program, and we really welcome Francesca Goodman-Smith, who will present in her session just after me around where the Transform program is heading. We did complete the rollout of participant snapshot reports to all our major cash contributors, and they are now receiving them on a quarterly basis. And we are being very open and transparent about what each of our organisations that are contributing financially are getting back from the CRC, and also looking at how their projects are tracking. So making sure we're open and honest and transparent as possible with all our participants. As I've touched on already, we have completed the initial impact assessment for each project to feed into the impact model. And again, I think that's a really nice piece of work for a CRC so early in their life. One thing that we haven't achieved in the last year, and we're very focused on at the moment, is to develop the business case for a national consumer behaviour change initiative. And we did have a workshop on this about a month ago now, a 2-day workshop. And we're now writing up the outcomes from that workshop and starting to develop a business case around what a national consumer behaviour change program could look like and what it's going to cost, and potential cost sharing arrangements for that. And finally, we did establish the National Food Waste Governance Entity Partnership, that is Stop Food Waste Australia, and you'll hear more about that over the coming 2 days. Now, just before I finish, I do want to touch on some other work that has occurred in the last 12 months, and that's work that was undertaken by FIAL, Food Innovation Australia Limited, around reassessing the national food waste baseline in Australia, and also looking at whether halving food waste by 2030 is feasible. I presented on some of this work at a Champions 12.3 Assembly meeting last night, and it really is quite a unique position that it puts Australia into in terms of really understanding where food waste is occurring and what it's going to take to halve food waste by 2030. And in that way, you know, certainly many of the other countries online last night were very envious about this work that's been undertaken. And once again, I would like to thank FIAL for their foresight in producing this work. So the revised headline numbers that you will be hearing about in the media now are on the right here. So we were always saying 20 billion in terms of the economic impact of food waste in this country. That was figures we put together back in 2015, and it really was not a back of the envelope, but it certainly wasn't as a complex modelling as what's occurred now. This 36.6 figure, I think, is much closer to the mark around what the true cost is of that food that goes on to be wasted. We also use an area greater than the size of Victoria to grow food that goes on to be wasted, 25 million hectares. You can see the water there, that's about 300 litres a day or 280 litres a day per person that is wasted in wasting the food that we do each year in Australia. And you can also see the most accurate greenhouse gas emission estimates that we've produced so far, 17.5 million tonnes. Now, in Australia, that equates to about 3% of of Australia's greenhouse gas emissions. And that's significantly less than what the global figure is, which is close to 8%. But that is because we are a high emitter in some other areas, such as power generation. So in terms of can we halve food waste by 2030, this is the modelling that FAO has undertaken. And what they have shown is that through implementing 23 particular or specific interventions, that we can that we can achieve a 50% reduction by about 2029. And you can see the three areas here, behaviour change, which we've touched on before, policy-led interventions, and industry-led interventions. And what this looks like in terms of a roadmap is this, is this graphic here. And I think it provides a really nice outline of what we need to do over the coming years. And there's a couple of areas that we're already strongly focused on before this report came out. And they are the nationwide behaviour change campaign, looking at potentially a grant round for food waste prevention research, wide-scale implementation of best practice on date labelling, and you can see the other targets there. And the other one is tax credits, which we're working with Food Bank Australia and KPMG on to make sure that if people are donating food, they are getting the recognition and the financial reward for doing so. I would like to leave it there and I will stop sharing. And I would like to hand over to Francesca to continue on with the presentation. Can I check whether we are do note there's some comments in the chat box. Are we taking any questions at the moment, Ben? I think we have just a couple of minutes. All right.
Hello, everybody. I'm Francesca Goodman-Smith. I'm the Transform Program Leader, and it is my absolute pleasure to represent the Transform team here today and guide you through our jam-packed session with some excellent speakers ahead. So first up, we will have Peter Bruce talking to us about Woolworths' innovation journey in the food waste space. I'll then share some highlights on food waste and the Transform program over the year. And then we will hear from some of our industry partners on a panel about how they are transforming food waste within their own businesses and further. So firstly, I would just like to touch on an important point. If you've got any questions as the speakers are talking, please put those questions in the chat, in the Q&A section of the chat. If you can't think of any questions on your own, that is completely fine. You can vote or like other people's questions, and the ones with the most likes will pop up for us to ask our speakers and panelists. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Peter Bruce, who is the head of the Waste and Resources team within Woolworths 360, the division of Woolworths Group that is focused on sustainability initiatives that utilise innovative partnerships and solutions to develop a circular economy. Thank you, Peter.
Hi, thank you for that. I'll just share my screen. Hopefully that all works. And is that coming up okay? That doesn't sound very good. Okay, thank you. So thank you and welcome to the Fight Food Waste Annual Conference. I'm very excited to be providing you the keynote address for the Transform section of the conference. Sorry if there's some noise in the background. I'm currently at our Cooma store trialling a new food waste initiative. If successful, this new initiative will see all of our stores having access to an organics solution across Australia, which is a fantastic outcome. This initiative is a result of work between the New South Wales EPA, Goterra, who are our food waste partner utilising black soldier fly larvae, and Primary Connect, who are our Woolworths transport provider. It's only by partnering with organisations like these that we are able to develop new solutions. Working together is the main focus of my keynote address today. At Woolworths, we are growing greener every day. We are listening to our customers and working hard to make their shopping experience more sustainable. Our customers have told us that food waste is one of their biggest concerns. So where is this food waste being generated from? Now, ideally, you'd be able to see a slide up here at the moment instead of just me. And that lovely slide would be showing you the different sectors of where the food waste would be coming from. And thank you. Just 1 second. And so, yes, so now we've got that slide. Thank you. So you can see that this is where all of the food waste is being generated from. As experts, you know this. A retailer like Woolworths generates 7% of the food waste. In Woolworths, sorry about that, guys. I think we've just had a bit of a technical issue, the world of online conferences. So I think where we were up to before we dropped out was we were looking at this slide and showing that retailers like Woolworths represents about 7% of the food waste that gets generated. And for Woolworths, this is about 80,000 tonnes of food waste per year, which to me is an incredibly huge number. At Woolworths, we're committed to eliminate food waste going to landfill by 2025 and have all edible food redistributed so that it can be eaten. Our progress has been great. We've got over 1,000 stores nationally, and from those 1,000 stores, we've seen over 50% of the food waste being diverted from landfill, and we've provided over 20. We currently partner with a number of farmers, and our partnership with farmers means that there's more food going to farmers than is going into landfill. The surplus bread that we have from 250 stores goes to make pet food. So we're really working hard to eliminate food going to landfill, and we will achieve our objective of eliminating all going to landfill by 2025. However, waste generated in the retail store only represents 7% of the total food waste in the supply chain. So what are we doing about the 37% in the supply chain upstream of Woolworths? From my calculation, this represents about 400,000 tonnes of food waste annually. And this is only in the Woolworths supply chain. At Woolworths, we care about this deeply, and I think everyone in this virtual room should care as well. Woolworths is trying to help address this problem by taking a greater range of produce through our very popular Odd Bunch program. This program takes produce that does not meet normal specifications and sells it at a discount, which helps families on a budget. This initiative has addressed tens of thousands of tonnes every year that we're able to help waste. However, this is only addressing the tip of the iceberg. To address the full scale of the problem, we need to work on these issues together. This is where we see Fight Food Waste CRC adding the most value at Woolworths. They bring knowledge, expertise, and connections that is necessary for Woolworths to take our upstream initiatives to the next level. Our buying and sourcing teams have been working to reduce food waste upstream for a few years, but this is a difficult task when you're performing it alone. With the help of the CRC, we can connect them with technically capable and expertise that we previously didn't have. We see the Transform program is integral to extracting more food from primary production and inputting it into the food system, helping us to secure our supply chains, supporting Australian farmers and adding value to the economy. I'm looking forward to seeing the outcomes of this forum, finding ways to transform this over 400,000 tonnes of food waste generated at farmers and manufacturers into new products that can be sold within a Woolworths store. And you can see some examples on the screen where we've done this in the past, but we really need to step forward and be able to do more of this into the future. Let's work together to create a better tomorrow by eliminating food waste from landfill. And I look forward to these outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. What a wonderful presentation. And you touched on so many fundamental concepts there around collaboration, joining with partners along the supply chain, and really being driven by what matters to your customers. So in light of that, I'd like to touch on your customers and the role that they play in driving Woolworths to innovate in terms of food waste utilisation and transformation, and potentially how they can demonstrate this to you or communicate with you their ideas around innovation for Woolworths.
We survey our customers all the time. We're taking feedback from our customers. We have a number of survey programs where we're really listening to our customers and hearing what they want. And that's why we have initiatives such as the Odd Bunch, where we're providing these outcomes for our customers. And the top 3 reasons of what customers want is eliminating food waste. So that's a very, very strong message that our customers are communicating. They've got concerns about packaging and things like that, but food waste is up in that top 3. And we need to work with our food waste and to eliminate those food waste and address their concerns.
Fantastic. And you touched on a really fundamental point as well around collaborating with your suppliers further up the supply chain. What does ideal collaboration look like for Woolworths?
So the example of what I just talked about, what we're doing down at Cooma, it's a number of parties coming together, working together to have a common outcome and getting over, what's in it for me? What's in it for me is providing a better environment for the future. And if we all work together with a common goal of eliminating food waste, we can find the right outcomes, and then there might be great commercial gains for each of us. But we have to be able to willingly get together, really engage with each other. And on the Transform side, there's the brilliant scientists at the CSIRO, having their knowledge, being able to work with our farmers, work with our buyers in Woolworths, and to be able to transform a food waste into a product that we can sell. So, our buyers know what will sell, but we don't know how to transform what's in a farm into something that our customers want to buy. So we need all of those groups coming together and sharing their ideas and having a plan and enacting that plan. We need support from governments to provide some financial tools to make those happen and incentives in some cases. But by working together, we can achieve these outcomes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Peter. And I think we're positioned very uniquely to support you through that journey and work with you and your suppliers, fill some of those R&D needs about how to convert waste on farm into valuable products for customers and how to support those supply chain relationships to deliver benefit for everybody. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us today. And we will move into the next session of the presentation, which is some highlights from the Transform program. So thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm just going to do a quick check to make sure that my slide deck is visible for everybody. Fantastic. So as I mentioned before, I have the amazing opportunity to be the Transform program leader and working with a fantastic team to deliver that program. For those participants, industry and researchers who I have not yet had the opportunity to meet and my team have not yet had the opportunity to meet, we really look forward to engaging with you over the coming year. So as Steve mentioned, it's been a huge period of growth for the CRC, and there's been some exciting opportunities laid by previous Transform program leadership and management and the wider CRC to grow our team and really fast track our activity to transform waste into new resources. So I'm here today representing my team, and I'd like to introduce you to Molly, our Deputy Program Leader, Jessica, our Transform Program Coordinator, and our innovation colleagues who we work extremely closely with, Val, based in Queensland, Jonathan in South Australia. And I'd also like to touch on our Transform Advisory Group, which formed over the last year. This is a group of leading academics who have expertise in the food transformation space, and they're guiding us through this journey as well. So what's on the agenda today? I've got 3 items for you. The first one is to talk about food transformation, why we're here, and what does it really mean? The second one is to give you an update of some highlights from the previous year. And the third one is to talk about our future direction over the next year and beyond. So I won't labour you with all the traditional facts and figures about food waste. We're all here in this virtual room because we know that food waste is a challenge and that we can collectively do something about it. But something I would really like to touch on is that we're seeing so much food waste because our food system is so linear and inefficient. Food waste is produced and resources are expended at every single part of our food supply chain. And there's minimal opportunity to recover and recapture that value if we look at the system in a linear way. At Fight Food Waste CRC, we believe in being able to join all of the pieces of the puzzle together to get resources back into the food supply chain. And transforming food waste is a really effective way to put resources back in. Now, this diagram here is incredibly busy, but the thing I want to highlight is that food waste as a resource can be inputted back into the food supply chain at various parts of the chain. And so that can deliver value, whether you're optimizing processes on farm or getting nutritive soils back to grow and regenerate, or you're transforming food waste from horticulture into upcycled foods that then are put on supermarket shelves. The opportunities are endless. So at the end of the day, it's triple bottom line. That's what it means. It makes economic sense to transform food waste. It gives businesses sustainability and longevity. For example, a beer producer can save on disposal costs from spent grain and create new products and revenue streams such as spent grain flour. It makes environmental sense. We can shorten supply chains, we can localize our logistics, we can share solutions, and we can reduce our reliance on virgin resources and on fossil fuels. And it makes social sense. In a country where we produce enough food to feed us 3 times over, and we have 1 in 6 people hungry, that doesn't make sense. And so we can utilize, for example, produce to turn into nutritious meals to feed everybody. So at the end of the day, putting resources back into circulation not only answers those questions, but it builds a robust food production system and future food economy for Australia. Right, so the Transform program, we have 4 key strategic activity areas. One is producing new products from food waste and enabling that research to know how to do that and what products to create. And that creates value for industry. We have transformation technology, and that helps to de-risk investment into technology for businesses, and it also enables efficient investment in infrastructure. Process optimization is our 3rd strategic activity area, and that allows us to build robust, efficient systems. And then finally, policy and regulation. That allows us to create enduring and long-lasting change. So a couple of highlights from the previous year. As it stood at the end of the financial year, we had 14 full-scale research projects in the Transform portfolio and 6 SME Solution Centre projects. 3 of our projects were completed in the last financial year. 11 new projects commenced, which consisted of 4 small to medium enterprise solution centre projects. We've been building our future leaders, and the Transform program is very proud to have 5 new students on board contributing to driving food waste reduction in the future. For example, one of our PhD students is looking at the policy and regulatory barriers to transforming fruit and vegetable waste in Australia. And we've completed 5 strategic milestones. And looking ahead, we have 5 projects approved for full proposal development and 13 new concepts in our pipeline, which is very exciting. So over the next slides, I'm going to unpack a little bit of detail around these projects and around these achievements. So to highlight here, these are our 3 projects that were completed in the last financial year. We had a partnership between Australian Country Choice, one of Australia's largest beef producers, which is a vertically integrated business, and with the research partner, University of Southern Queensland. So they analysed different opportunities to make the Australian Country Choice operations circular by utilising byproducts and waste and putting them back in as resources into that closed loop system. So recommendations were shortlisted that could achieve cost cuts for the business as well as increase revenues. And now Australian Country Choice are spreading that more widely and helping the sector to achieve these common goals through taking part in our reduced whole of supply chain mapping project. We had another project completed, which was optimising and utilising apple and pear pulp residue from the juicing and processing business, and that was led by Sardi. So 7 different potential use cases were identified for these products, from nutraceuticals to upcycled foods to biofuels, across the whole spectrum, and they were cost analysed. A key recommendation from this project was that due to the scale of the industry in Australia, it needs collective action to bring everybody together to deliver deliver that benefit. So shared resources, shared processing facilities, etc. And now we're looking at future stages of that project. Also, we had another project completed this year, which was the first stage of transforming surplus tomato and capsicum into new innovative products, a collaboration between Bowen Gumlu Growers Association, Whitsunday Regional Council, and Queensland Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. And we will hear from Carl Walker later more about this project, so I'll touch briefly. Establish proof of concepts for value adding and protocols, and now stage 2 is underway to screen additional varieties of tomato and capsicum and look for those bioactives and the most efficient technologies to transform them. Across our 4 key strategic activity areas, we have had projects commence this year. This is our full research portfolio to the date of the end of the financial year. So I will pick out some that started over the last financial year. So we have a project utilising the sandalwood nut. So an industry that previously there was no real market or use for the nuts of the sandalwood. And we're looking at creating a whole suite of products, from oils to foods to health products. In terms of technology transformation, we've got this project on converting food waste to pig feed and looking at that process, and particularly looking at food safety, biosecurity concerns, and scalability. And here we have strategic activity 3, which is all around optimization. This is home to our small to medium enterprise solutions centre, which consists of 6 projects, and there's still room for more projects over the coming year. One project in particular with Daintree Fresh looked at ways to utilise the 20 to 30% of pumpkin losses they were experiencing and converting these into juices, powders, proteins. And then last but not least, we have a project in the policy and regulation space, which is identifying and understanding the regulatory changes needed to support growth of the black soldier fly industry in Australia in order to utilise food waste to convert to animal feed. And we'll hear more from Olympia later. So where to from here? We're taking note of our progress over the last year. We've got our team behind us and we're driving forward. So we've got 3 key areas. We need to drive the halving food waste target for Australia with the CRC and Stop Food Waste Australia. We need to develop projects that will deliver impact beyond the life of the CRC, as Steve mentioned earlier, and we need to deliver for our participants. In terms of halving food waste, we will absolutely honour our commitments to our original participants and build on their expertise, strengths and opportunities they've brought to the CRC, but we will double down on activity towards our halving food waste target. So that means looking at areas that count and are eligible towards the halving food waste target, and these overlay at the top of the food waste hierarchy. So we'll work with our colleagues in Reduce and Engage and Stop Food Waste Australia on prevention and reduction. And then we will look at the valorisation options that exist at that top of the food waste hierarchy, producing nutraceuticals, upcycled foods, animal feeds, and high-value biomaterials such as bioplastics. But we will take an integrated approach to ensure there's no perverse outcomes from this targeted activity, and that we're taking a holistic approach that allows us to be situational and understand where the opportunities exist for best and highest value use for that waste stream. If we're going to achieve our impact areas in the 7 years left of the CRC, we need to be targeted. We have amazing resources to target our activity, including the FIAL hotspots analysis that came out earlier this year, research from our other CRC projects, and also leaning on our research providers and industry providers to share knowledge and data on where the food waste hotspots are. So if we look at this, there's significant opportunities. There's data gaps in red meat and in seafood. And there's, where we know there's hotspots is in horticulture. So we will look to be working with sectors, working with our colleagues in Stop Food Waste Australia on sector action plans and with the rest of the CRC to deliver collective impact in those hotspot areas. So delivering beyond the CRC. So how can we ensure that the work done within our projects is sustained? We want to build foundations to enable systems to shift through this research from linear to circular. We want to foster long-standing collaborations between our industry and research partners to carry on this activity for years to come. And through projects, we hope to demonstrate the opportunities from transforming food waste into new products and embed this in business models going forward so that industry are driving this change. And last but absolutely not least is delivering for our participants. Of course, they're the reason why we are all here. You are the reason why we are here. So through building the right teams, the right researchers and industry partners and supporting those teams, that will lead to tangible outputs for industry, transformational opportunities for our research providers, and it will deliver collective impact for Australia. So in summary, we've built the team and the vision. We've had achievements in financial year 2020 to 2021, and we will drive forward with this approach to deliver even more success in the year to come. So just to finish off, I would like to say an amazing thank you and acknowledgement to our partners, our industry partners, our research partners, our state governments. It's participants like you who are the leaders for developing a better food system for the future. So on that note, I would like to invite our panelists to the stage. So we have an amazing suite of panelists for you today, covering a broad range of our Transform projects. So I would like to introduce Carl Walker, who is the president of the Bowen Gumlu Growers Association, an industry association supporting collaboration and growth for regional farming businesses. And he is the industry partner for our Transform program around tomato and capsicum valorization. I'd like to introduce Olympia Yarger, who is our founder and CEO of Goterra, and she's involved in the industry partner for our optimizing and industrializing black soldier fly production. Goterra, she leads the vision and redefining waste management with biotechnology and eco-friendly infrastructure. And then we have John McArthur, who represents our Small to Medium Enterprise Solutions Centre. He's the director of Banana Feeds Australia, an innovative business that provides nutritional, healthy feeds and supplements for the equine and livestock industry. So without further ado, I will stop sharing my screen and welcome the panelists.
Thanks, Francesca.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for joining us today. So the first question and the burning question, I'm sure everybody would like to hear more about your projects. So if I can start with Carl today, are you able to give us a 90-second overview of your project?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for the opportunity and morning, everyone. We're up here in beautiful Whitsundays in Bowen. We grow during winter time slot because it's obviously too hot during summer. We do have a lot of product that's unsuitable for the supermarkets and for the consumers, which does make it a little bit difficult for the waste. So we've been working on a project to try to utilise what we call unutilised raw material. A lot of the product does actually go to the cows. There's actually nothing wrong with it. It's just obviously a little bit marked or it's still stand up and are good for processing. So for capsicum and tomatoes, we start with those two because they're some of the biggest producers in the region. And we're trying to just work out what we can do with them to maximise what we can get out of them. So not just taking out lycopene or just taking out natural colours. We want to use every last bit of it right down to the water that's in tomatoes and capsicums, which can be filtered out and used for health drinks, etc. So, some of these studies have been done before, but not quite so in depth. And also, we've got to find something that's actually we can sell and compete on the world market, because that's what we're competing on. We're not competing in Australia. We're competing on stuff being imported. So it's been an interesting journey. It takes a little bit longer than you think it's going to take, but we are, I suppose, very committed to making sure our producers are not throwing away quite as much to the cows, and there's more going into more being utilised, so we're not wasting the resources we use for growing, etc.
Fantastic. Thank you, Carl. That's a wonderful overview. Now, Olympia, would you be able to share a little summary of your project?
Sure. So we're working on the opportunities within the valorisation of food waste using black soldier fly. And so we're creating just a deeper level of understanding around the supply chain from waste through to feed in relation to consumption, pathogen management, potential handling or process flow issues, and then of course processing and handling and some of the hassle around that creates security and stability. Some of the fun stuff that's already started is sort of just understanding different waste types to get baseline information so that we can just have an Australian understanding of what the Australian strains, how they perform on waste and what it looks like for them to consume waste. So if we're going to continue to leverage this process to manage food waste, we need to really understand the materials flow and how we handle safety within that materials flow so that we can create products that are safe to go to market. So that's the main focus of what we're doing. It's exciting so far. Looking forward to the next bit.
Thanks, Olympia. Fantastic. And John, can we hear a little bit about your really interesting project in the banana feed space?
Yeah, sure, Francesca. So myself and my business partner, Robert Posado, we commenced a business going back just prior to February 2020. And what we were trying to do is to repurpose, transform banana waste into a supplement for equine. We'd been working, we obviously had to build our facility, brand new facility up in Cairns, and we basically wanted to prove up the theory that obviously green bananas were extremely beneficial for equine diet. And in doing so, we engaged in the CRC to undertake some research, and our research partners being the University of Adelaide and also SARDI, who we started a project with looking at EGUS, which is equine gastric ulceration syndrome, and how we could actually see the benefits of what delivering a green banana into the horse's diet would achieve.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Alrighty, so Carl, I might start with you. So what are the opportunities and barriers that you see for food waste innovation in your industry? And particularly, how is this project advancing this?
Yeah, look, I think what's happened in our industry, and I'm not trying to bag the big chains or anything, but they put far too much emphasis on perfect. And they push their growers to grow more to get more perfect product. So then you have more product that's what they now call the odd bunch that's being left behind. In our industry, we have between 10 and 50% unutilised raw material, which is shocking. And with the increased prices of input costs, even 2022 is going to push up input costs by probably 30%. We need to make sure that everything we produce is going somewhere. It just doesn't stay on the ground to rot. It actually gets utilised. So by going through this process of finding what we can make out of it, the whole world after this pandemic is going to hopefully chase a healthier living. And obviously food from Australia is extremely healthy because we are regulated. We don't use bad stuff. So hopefully we can get products like our paste, our powders, the lycopenes, everything we get, natural colours, everything possibly can, or the juice out of the fruit, and we can actually market that so that the stuff that's actually going into the tip truck, which may just be slightly overripe or might be slightly marked, can then be utilised and turned into a product that the consumers, not only in Australia but around the world, can grab. And hopefully, like even with overseas aid, we did raise this with the federal government in past talks to actually set up something where they underpin something at a market price and use some of the products for overseas aid, because you've got obviously products that you don't need refrigeration. Once you've actually dehydrated them, etc. They basically said to us that's not achievable, but I can't see why it's not. We've got an enormous amount of product here, and we can help feed the world with our waste. We just need to make sure that we can do the job. We come out with good things. Same as Swiss, obviously one of your partners, with natural vitamins, etc. Everyone knows that fresh fruit and veggies is damn good for you. If you can download everything out of that into a powder or a paste or a capsule, then obviously we're helping the world to become healthier. So hopefully less illness, less need for medical. It helps the whole society economically too, because as we go on, there's more people needing help because they're not eating healthy. Obesity, etc. With the pandemic, obviously anyone who's not healthy is getting sick faster and dying. So it's our job, I think, to utilise all the unused material into these projects. And I think it's a great opportunity. We're quite excited about it. Hopefully we can get it into production sooner rather than later. But as I keep saying, things take longer than you think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love your holistic vision of actually, looking at the impact that you can have and then figuring out, working with researchers, bringing your growers together to figure out how you can get there. The overseas aid opportunity, I think, is huge and really interesting to hear your perspective on that and the links with health, because fruit and vegetables, as we all know, is an amazing source of nutrition, and it is what everybody needs to live a good functioning life. We do have a specific question from Adrian Spencer from Simpano, just asking about bioactives specifically, and if you can talk a little bit about the bioactives that you're interested in as part of your project.
As in basically just the what we can utilise, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're looking at utilising every last bit of it. So right from the skin to the water to the seed. That's the whole reason we've gone down the path we have, and it's taken a little bit longer, is because we don't want any waste. You can just go in tomatoes, just grab the lycopene out of them and chuck the rest away, and there's still money to be made out of that. But we can utilise the whole every last bit of it, so there's no waste at all. As we had discussions last year with a company who wanted all the moisture out of all the water for health drinks. That's something we didn't think would actually come up. We figured that water would just be chucked away. So the more we can actually utilise every last bit of it, we don't want to have any waste at all. Like I said, you can use natural colours. There's a lot of goodies, probably the best way to put it, a lot of goodies and capsicums and tomatoes and all the products we grow. But we're just going to make sure we waste not one lot. So we're not really focusing on any part of it. We're trying to focus on every single part of that waste product. And even the stuff that we cannot use, we can turn into bio and actually create electricity with it.
That's great. That's great. It's embedding those circular economy principles and making sure food is reframed as being value and not waste. So I'd like to touch on just a quick reminder, if you've got any questions, pop them in the Q&A box because I am monitoring that as we talk. But Olympia, I'd like to invite you to the hot seat for the next question. So just wanting to know a little bit about how policies and regulations impact your ability to use food waste as an input into your product.
Sure. So currently Australia has the most accessible regulation and policy in the world for the use of black soldier fly on actual waste. So you can feed food waste to insects and have those insects converted to livestock feed. And the way the matrix is playing out is that the regulations that apply to managing well, receiving and managing and processing food waste are held within the states and are relative to the states. So, you still need to get a waste management license in some cases. You'll need to deliver an EMP, an environmental management plan in some cases. So those things are already fixed and they're known within the state. And then the process of managing the insects themselves, here at Goterra, we follow guidance from Animal Health Australia, the Farm Biosecurity Plan, and then yours just standard HACCP and GMP in relation to sort of any farm or food production. And then once you sort of have your product and you're going to the sort of cleaning and processing place, then again, you're following sort of standard HACCP and regulations and standards in relation to feed for livestock in Australia. So you have, any insect that has consumed meat or dairy is considered RAM, restricted animal material, and that insofar will then determine what those insects can be fed to. So if they ate RAM and you're in a state where poultry is not allowed to be fed RAM, then those insects cannot go to poultry. If you found a waste stream that was entirely vegetative, so you were on the back end of a fruit pulp plant or similar, then those insects could go to poultry in Queensland because they have not consumed restricted animal material. So those things are sort of how that matrix plays out, where you're just applying regulation and standards as they are relative to the stage within the supply chain that you're owning. I think the next evolution of that is to get more concrete understanding where insects are actually included and spoken of within those regulations and guidelines. And I think that's where the work that we're doing is really important. We want to contribute to creating best practice to support this industry in growing. The fastest way to do that is to remove some of the hesitancy around transparency and providence and making sure things are safe, and removing the sort of cultural or ideological perceptions of what's safe and creating a more science-based approach to determining safety and safe practice. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Olympia, very much. And, I know that you're doing this research to plug those gaps, but right now, if you had one call to action for policymakers, what would that be?
To be fair, I think we've actually had really great engagement from policy. I think where we have challenge is, across insects for food and feed is, the disconnect between what is commercially okay and acceptable and then where venture and financial investment finds confidence, and those two things are different. So for example, for all intensive purposes, because insects are not physically named as something that can be used, it can create or diminish confidence in investment interest, because even though it appears legal, it's not says you can use this product, which is where a lot of people get their confidence. And so I think it's just as we continue to understand, make sure that the regulation encompasses what we need, those things will evolve. But to be fair, I don't know if we could move much faster. Like, we started the process around policy and legislation in 2016. At that point, it was already legal, and now we're here and we've got quite robust understanding of regulation. Stock Feed Manufacturers Council is being tasked with helping that live in the feed side, and I think we couldn't really ask for much more there.
Yeah, okay, great. That's great context. So it's sort of, that these things are kind of encompassed within regulation, but it's implicit rather than explicit. And obviously we have to bear in mind, regulation review pipelines and when that's planned for. So it's fantastic that you're doing that early work now, so that when the questions are asked, you're ready.
That's right.
So, John, I have got a question for you. So after undertaking this research, I don't know if you want to touch on a little bit more detail of the specific findings from your project, but what do you intend to do with the results, and what does it mean for your business?
Yeah, thanks, Francesca. The results, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the CRC has been a massively invaluable process for us to be involved in. As a small, medium enterprise, starting a new business, commencing the week before COVID restrictions came into place, we had a huge amount of challenges. And one of the things that you're looking for is validation when you're starting to do some of these research projects. We had a new concept, we had a new idea, it was innovative, it was something that hadn't been done anywhere else in the world, but it's all good and well to bring a product to market, but you also need to validate it. And what the CRC project enabled us to do was to work with some really smart, intelligent, hardworking professionals at the University of Adelaide, and through SARDI, understand exactly what the composition of our product was. And for those of you listening, we take basically the product from banana production that is not quite up to spec, might have a slight imperfection, skin markings, and we want to take that product and we want to repurpose it. And we actually did some anecdotal studies in the field where we fed it to horses and to other species. We did some literature review all around the world, which amplified the potential benefits that feeding this product to an animal could provide. But we wanted to understand it, and by being involved with the CRC and having this equine project in particular, it laid it all out on the table for us, understanding exactly what amino acids were involved, what polyphenols and flavonoids, and all the really hugely beneficial attributes of the product. And then having that research into quite a large study, which hadn't been done anywhere as well, we recruited 200 horses to try to deliver some results as to why the benefit from taking a waste product, essentially, and turning it into a value-added supplement for horses. And the results have been fantastic. We've now taken those results and it's validated our whole business model, and enabled us to certainly start exporting to numerous countries overseas and have quite a prolific presence here in Australia. So it's been really important. That collaboration of the CRC is fundamentally important to our success to this point.
Yeah, fantastic. And, are there specific challenges that you face being a small to medium enterprise in terms of that access to R&D and innovation?
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't a small cost project. For us to have the likes of some of the PhD qualified and associate professors and that intellect from the University of Adelaide, I mean, that expertise doesn't come cheap. And for a small business, and we're a family-owned business, there was no way that we could have probably done the extent of the research that we wanted to do without that support from the CRC Fight Food Waste. And it's been really, really important. I mean, it's a very expensive, research is very expensive, and everyone knows that. And to have this sort of initiative to help us undertake that research has really helped us validate what we knew inside of ourselves and anecdotally, but to have it on paper has been invaluable.
Thanks, John. That's fantastic. And you sort of touched on, having access to a broad range of expertise and PhD students and all of those sort of things. So I've got a wee question for Olympia. So you've got a PhD student associated with your project who's one of our future leaders, Sian, based at the University of Queensland. And I'd just like to hear your insights and your kind of take on having a student really involved in your project.
Yeah, we love having students involved in the project because they come from a different perspective and with that fresh set of eyes and passion to really explore. And so you get this beautiful integration of somebody who's excited and has the capability to do valuable analysis, but also is sort of coming so clean and new to the space, forest for the tree all day type stuff. We are particularly fortunate with the individual we have because Sian's standard of work is some of the highest that I've seen in the PhD students that we've worked with in the past. And so his analysis, he's done a literature analysis and a review of all of the work done on safety and sort of handling of waste streams using black soldier fly. And we shared that through our international organisations, so with the Northern America Insect Coalition and Insect for the IPEF, which is the European Union, as well as AFIA, which are from Asia, and everybody was just like really excited about having just that resource. And you really need somebody who is excited about these subjects to just go in and get engaged in that way and do beautiful work on some of the more seemingly mundane, but like when you're a new industry and you have none of these tools at your disposal, they're just so incredibly valuable and powerful. And so, yeah, it's just been really, really great. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Olympia. Awesome to have your anecdotes and insights there. I have got a question from the audience, and it's from Ken Dodds from Chem Centre. So he's just asking, and I'll open this up to anybody, about the role of certification of these new products or new services, new products that you're providing, and what role that plays in engaging buyers or end users, whether they're domestic or international.
Well, Francesca, from our point of view, we needed to get feed safe accreditation to have that validity in the buyer space. And obviously to get that, there was the process of understanding the product. But yeah, it's pretty important. No different to when we wanted to promote to the Singapore Jockey Club. We still had to have that sort of feed safe accreditation and other accreditation to be able to enter those markets. So it's critical.
I think likewise for us, we've really been looking at feed safe, and I think any kind of quality assurance program that you can integrate with is valuable, because certainly creating your own is, would be just, redundant in one breath, but also just difficult, right? Like you do need to leverage. And I think, from my experience, what's really important for emerging industries and new products is to really understand like where your product fits and how you can leverage existing tools to send it to market. Like the opportunity to recreate this over and over again just exhausts time, capital, and will. And so you're finding ways to sort of understand how your product can be brought in under another program, just leverages a lot more credibility in that way.
Great, thanks, Olympia.
You guys are all very open. I don't know what your experiences was, John, but like our experience with the Feed Safe program, very interactive, very, want to make it work, very good with advice and ways to make these processes. So it's not as intimidating as it may sound. Like they want. Yeah,
I agree. I think it was quite a seamless process, but I guess from our business's point of view, we've gone across obviously into stock feed and equine, but we're going into new species as well. We've had some amazing results in bees, for instance. But the next question for us is we've also had a lot of potential involvement from the human consumption sector, and from feed safe is obviously one point, but then to be able to get that expertise to be able to then deliver a food safe product seamlessly, it's understanding that requirement that I think will be the next barrier for us that we need to probably get some assistance with and understand better.
And probably from our perspective, we're probably fortunate that all our product is actually already destined for fresh market. So it's ticked all the boxes, and it's already destined for human consumption. So we're probably a bit luckier with our process of making sure it's safe, because it already is safe.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, and Carl, that's the same as, and we're certainly in the same boat, but there are still a few barriers from taking it from a fresh produce like ours as a green banana, yours as a capsicum, but then to take it into a feed safe setting, there is a couple of barriers there that still take a little bit of a hurdle.
Yet for us to find, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something I'd like to add there is around, you know, the food for human consumption, and the communicating the message to the consumer is so important. An initiative I have been working on over the last couple of years with the Upcycled Food Association in the US was developing a certification for upcycled food products so that consumers know there's no perverse environmental outcomes. It's genuinely made from food that would have otherwise gone to waste and meets all of these standards. So hopefully we can get that adopted internationally and in Australia soon. So that might be something to add to your suite there, Carl. Cool. Okay, well, in the essence of time, we've got around 5 minutes to go. I'd just like to give you all an opportunity to, you know, if there's any last words, any messages you'd like to leave with the audience. So Carl, since you were just talking, how about you kick it off?
All right, no worries. Look, at the end of the day, I think we just got to obviously work with producers as well as people buying our products, right down to the big supermarkets and that, and try to encourage people not to grow more, but to actually utilise what they are growing. Because, you know, we're moving towards a 2050 zero. The Prime Minister's already told us that. So we've got to make all our businesses now, they're going to be net zero by 2050. So, you know, the chains have got a big part of this. It's all very well saying that what they're doing, but they've got to make sure they're not pushing their producers to grow more to try to get a perfect product. Consumers, if you talk to consumers, do they really mind if it's a slight mark on it? And also pricing and stuff. If we're getting $3 a kilo and it's sold for $12 in the supermarket, it stops people buying it. Those kind of things creates waste and puts pressure on waste and put pressure on quality. So if we can work on all that all the way through the chain, it's not just about one part of it, it's the whole part of it's got to work together to make sure we're not producing more product, as Australia already produces enough food for 80 million people, and there's only 26 million here. So, and exporting is only a percentage, the rest is going to waste. And that's causing the issues that we're having now. So if we can just pull back a little bit, make sure that the people that are pushing their producers to grow this perfect product for the consumer. Most consumers don't care if it's got a mark on it. It's just a way to actually screw over the growers and take more profit out of it. And if we can share the love a little bit, because our costs are going through the roof, and we want to minimise the cost of the consumer so they can eat healthy. But in between, they've got to play the game as well. It sounds like I'm bashing, and I probably am. But we've got to make sure we maximise the whole chain. And not just look at, because we've all got faults here, and we've got to and there's an enormous amount of product that's unutilised, and we're not going to be able to find homes for all if we keep overproducing. So overproducing is probably our biggest problem, unfortunately, in this country.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. And I think, you know, we've got Stop Food Waste Australia recently launched and here to help solve those issues and facilitate those conversations across supply chains, particularly through our horticulture sector action plan. So keep an eye out for that. Hopefully that can help. Olympia, I'd like to hand over to you to any final last words you'd like to share.
Sure. I guess from my perspective, like what we're really focused on and looking forward to moving forward is similar insofar as like how do we collaborate with our partners, how do we collaborate with new partners, and where do we see our product in market, and how do we evolve that? I think it's the one thing that I really want to focus on is from Goterra's perspective, the philosophy is that if everybody's doing their job properly, what is wasted today and what is waste today will not be waste tomorrow. And if that's true, then we need to be on a pathway to making sure that we can not just handle the food waste of today, but handle what food waste will be tomorrow. Because if Carl and John are doing their parts well, then the stuff that's going to end up at my place will be sludges and oils and the really end of stage stuff that right now isn't really being addressed by many at all. And so that's sort of our focus. And so when we think about collaborating with partners, we want to sort of understand, like, if we manage this today, do you really want to need to manage this tomorrow? Like, are we going to try and get rid of this? And if that's true, then what will be your waste stream tomorrow? And so that's kind of what we're excited to evolve in the project over the coming years, and certainly through into this next 2 quarters as we sort of hit stride on some of the bigger media parts of the trial. So looking forward to letting you all know what growth stuff we're managing with maggot robots next year.
We can't wait to hear about it. So John, any final thoughts you'd like to leave our audience today?
Look, probably just around collaboration and action. I think that, it takes a rising tide to lift all ships. And, certainly when you're looking at this program and the ability to pull, some really intelligent people together to solve problems, I think that's critical. But the action, the rubber has to hit the road. And I know from our business's point of view, the research was one part of our whole business plan, but it was a very important part. And we did, we benefited hugely from being involved in these sort of initiatives. It'll flow on to other opportunities. I think I used the example with Stephen the other day. We started this with horses. We've now gone into canines, bees, and potentially humans. And that's all come about through the networking that you find when you're involved in these programs. Utilise the networks as best as you possibly can, utilise the intelligence and the intellect that these programs pull together and make the most of the opportunity for your business. And I think our business wouldn't be where it is now without it. And we certainly have high hopes for the future for what we're going to become moving forward.
Thanks, John. It's amazing to hear that success story. So in the spirit of collaboration, I encourage you all in the break that's upcoming after the reduced session to connect with other people within the CRC, researchers, participants, industry partners, and also connect with us, with our Transform program team. We're all here to help you, whether you've got a research idea, you've got an industry problem, please reach out. We're really excited to work together and really build on this success in the year ahead. So thank you to all the panelists. Really appreciate your time and insights. And thank you for listening to the Transform session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.